Are you in the market for a pet snake but don't know where to begin? It can be quite a daunting task with so many options available. To help you out, we're making this video of our top 5 recommended snakes for beginners. To learn more, stay tuned. I'm John with Shadowland Serpentry. This is my wife Paulina, and we're here to talk to you about the best pet beginner snakes. So, the options on our list we chose them based on our personal experience with them, how available they are captive bred, their temperaments, and their ease of care.
Okay, let's start with our first choice.
We like to start off by our first choice being the ball python. And first, I'd like to say these aren't in order from worst to best or any kind of ranking. This is just the order we're presenting them in. So the ball python, they're native to West Africa, and this is iris. This is normally how you would find them in the wild. But in the hobby, you can find them in all kinds of different colorations, such as leucistic, albino, pied, or like sapphire here, or any combinations of other colors that suit your style.
So sapphire is actually a pied. So as you can see, there is a little bit of pattern here, but also there's a lot of white, and that's what pied is.
And I feel like the normals are a little bit underrated. They're beautiful in their own right, just like iris here. But ball pythons are readily available captive bred in the hobby. If you go to any expo, you're going to see tons of ball python boots. They're easy to care for. Their temperament's amazing, as you can see from both sapphire and iris. They don't tend to strike. You can find a nippy hatchling every now and then, but that goes away with regular handling and age. But these guys are one of the most common pet snakes, if not pet reptiles, in the industry.
And like you had mentioned, for a good reason, right? They are very, very good to handle. Their temperament is great. They could be a little shy at first. So Sapphire, she's pretty young and she's exploring a little bit right now, but definitely when we first get her out of her enclosure, she's pretty shy, a little hissy. She doesn't strike or anything like John had mentioned.
So Sapphire here in Paulina's hands, she's a yearling, so a little bit bigger than they are when they hatch, but still nowhere near their full size. Neither is Iris here, for example. She's 2 years old, but they grow to be about 5 feet for females and 3 feet for males. Their husbandry, how you keep them, you want a temperature range between 75 to 85, cool side to warm side, and then you want a basking spot about 95 degrees. Their enclosure size, you ideally want a 3 to 4 foot enclosure for ball pythons. They do great in a rack system as well. In the wild, they tend to live in termite mounds, and they don't move much until prey items such as a mouse comes into the termite mound. So racks or appropriate sized tubs are perfect for them.
And like with a lot of the reptiles and amphibians too, they are pretty big time commitment, right? So they live anywhere from 20 to 30 years, sometimes maybe even longer. So keep that in mind if you want to get a reptile. They tend to live a long time.
All right, with that, let's move on to our next species. Next up, we have corn snakes on our list. Corn snakes are amazing pets, and they're readily available captive bred also. They are native to the southeast US. I know what a lot of you are thinking. Corn snakes are just regular snakes that are boring. They were once common in the hobby, but why get a corn snake? Well, I'll tell you. Corn snakes, they eat readily. They're easy to care for. They have amazing temperaments, and like Maze here, they come in all kinds of different colors and patterns. Maze happens to be an anery scaleless corn snake. So if you get a good look at her, she does not have any scales on her body, which varies sometimes with the scaleless. Sometimes they may have a few here and there, but she just basically has a skin instead of scales.
The only area where she has scales is the belly. So as you can maybe see, that's where her scales are. Like John had said, the rest of the body, no scales whatsoever.
And they kind of need those for movement. Without belly scales, they wouldn't get too far. An example of the different morphs you can get with corn snakes are like Maze here, who's a scaleless anery. We have our palmetto Picasso, and we have our newest additions, Tamale and Elote, which are saffron and sun-kissed. Tamale and Elote, they come from ECW Reptiles here locally to the Quad Cities. So if you're in the market for a corn snake, I highly recommend you check them out. Corn snakes are very easy to care for. They also get to be about 3 to 6 feet in length. Their adult size just depends on individual genetics. Males and females grow to be about the same size, so no difference there.
They are not as thick as ball pythons, even though they're the same size. So as you can tell the difference between Maze and the Sapphire that I held earlier, Maze is a lot thinner than Sapphire was.
So as far as keeping them, you want to keep their basking temperature about 90 degrees, and once again, their cool to warm side temperatures would range from about 72 degrees to 85 degrees. A little bit easier to keep for most people because they are smaller than ball pythons. They're also a more active snake, so if you want to be able to interact more and watch them in their enclosure, corn snakes are great to have.
And they are more diurnal at times than ball pythons are, so definitely you'll be able to see them be more active during the day than you would see your ball python.
With that, let's move on to our next species. Next up on our list, we have kingsnakes and milk snakes. And just to be clear, milk snakes are a subspecies of kingsnake. So whenever you hear the two, just know they are in the same species. Milk snakes, they got their name from farmers in the past thinking that they were in the barns suckling milk from cows, and they tried to chase them off. It was a bad relationship with milk snakes for whatever reason. Kind of awkward to think that a snake would drink milk from a cow, when in reality they were just getting the rodents out the barn, but I guess that's what you think of whenever there's witchcraft and everything around. Milk snakes and king snakes, they both range throughout the Americas. There's all kinds of different color variations, different sizes, and tends to be varying husbandry depending on exactly what you get. Callie here is a black milk snake, so she starts off with the typical red, black, and white banding, but as she ages and continues to shed and grow, she becomes solid black. So we'll give you a quick picture of what that looks like and currently what her transition has been.
So as far as temperament goes, the reason why we have king snakes and milk snakes on our list is because they tend to be pretty docile, a little squirmy when hatchlings. As you can see, Callie is a little more active than our ball pythons were, and even our baby corn snake here, Maze. So definitely something to keep in mind, but in general, very, very handleable, especially when they're older and you handle them regularly since hatchling. They don't really strike much. They have a very good food response, so that's always good. You don't have to worry about them not eating.
One interesting thing about the king snakes overall is that they tend to be snake eaters, Ophiophagus. But black milk snakes here, they aren't as much snake eaters. So that's one of the reasons why we elected to pick the black milk snake specifically, because other king snakes, they'll smell a snake on you and they'll either bite you or bite themselves because they smell like a snake, because they are a snake. And that's where you'll get the pictures and videos of them eating themselves because they get hungry and decide, oh, there's a snake here, not realizing it's their own tail.
As far as the size goes, they grow to be about 3 to 5 feet.
Their size also varies between the different species of king and milk snakes. Black milk snakes tend to be the largest out of the species in general. Then you have Andeans, which are very similar and close in size, but they keep their coloration throughout their life. Another unique thing about the black milk snakes is that they're a montane species, so they live higher in the Andes Mountains, and because of that, you can keep them at room temperature in your house. They don't need any kind of heat to survive, and they actually are pretty hardy to cooler temperatures if you keep your house in the 60s like a lot of people will. But they tend to like it between 70 and 80, at no more than 80, honestly, and they do perfect.
Okay, let's put Callie back and let's go ahead and talk about our next snake on the list.
Next on our list, we have the Kenyan sand boas, also readily available captive bred. These guys are great for your first pet snake. They are very docile, easy to handle, and they eat incredibly well. Strong food response. But this is not a snake you want to get if you want to see them active in their enclosure throughout the day. The most you'll see out of them, they'll poke their head out the dirt and you'll just see their little snoot sticking out.
Kenyan sand boas are native to East Africa, specifically the Egypt through Kenya, that part of Africa.
They tend to grow to be upwards of 3 feet, with females being larger. They are a thicker snake than you would see from corn snakes, but they're shorter. So very easy to house. If you keep a female in a 20-gallon enclosure, that'd be perfect for her entire adult life. Their husbandry, their temperatures range, their basking spot would be about 92 degrees, and then you want to keep their ambient temperatures between 75 to 85.
As John had mentioned before, they are not the most active species, so you will not see them out and about at all. They just kind of stay in their dirt and wait for prey to come around.
Them being a fossorial species, when you're handling them, you'll see them kind of push into your skin. That's just them looking for a place to dig. That's not them trying to bite or trying to eat any part of you, but it's just a natural instinct for their species to try to dig to find coverage or shelter.
So Shadow here, she's actually not normal morph. She's what's called anery. So she's dark, as you can tell. But their normal appearance is more of a orange with black spots, which is very interesting.
Alright, with that, let's move on to our next species. Last on our list, we have the common boa, otherwise known as the boa imperator. They are located in Central and South America, and they're commonly found in the pet hobby as well. We chose them because they also have great temperaments, and you can find them in all kinds of different morphs and like. Hi.
She just wanted to say hi.
And this is just an example of how docile they tend to be. I have no fear of Athena ever striking me in the face at all.
They tend to do that, our boas do with John. For whatever reason, they just seem to be drawn to him, and one of them strikes at me all the time, so there you go.
That one just messes with her. It strikes as she's passing the glass, and then it just looks at her waiting to strike again.
I just move too much, that's what it is. Or I'm just too fast when I move.
Because whenever you get her out, she's just as sweet as these two. Speaking of, this is Kronos. He's an IMG Motley boa, which is why he's much darker than Athena here, which is almost what you would find in the wild.
As far as the size, they are larger than the rest of the snakes on our list today. They average about 5 to 8 feet.
Yeah. Females being larger.
Exactly. And so the enclosure has to be larger as well. So we would recommend, what do you think, not anything smaller than probably a 4x2. The larger the better with them. Probably a 6 to maybe even 8 foot enclosure for larger females would be great.
As far as their husbandry goes, we keep their basking temperature around 90 to 92 degrees, and then their ambient temperatures 75 to 85 degrees.
They are semi-arboreal, so that's worth noting as well. Like Athena here though, she doesn't seem to climb much in her enclosure. She just kind of stays on the ground. But Kronos, we got him, a few months ago, and he basically has not left his perch ever since. So that just goes to show you how different snakes have different personalities, even though they're the same species.
Because of their size, they tend to be a little bit more intimidating for most people, but all the boas I've interacted with, they tend to be sweethearts. As you can see here, there's no defensive or aggressive behavior between either one of them. They're just a great species to own, especially if you want something that's a little bit more sizable and impressive to pull out and hold and wrap around your shoulders.
What helps too is that they tend to move pretty slow. Them being constrictors, they don't really move as quick as, say, your king snakes or your milk snakes, even corn snakes. So that's pretty nice for people that want just something that will hold on to you and give you hugs. That's a perfect species to have for sure.
So this is the last species on our list. Let's put them up and we'll get right back to you. Alright, so that concludes our list for the best beginner pet snakes. With the ball python, the corn snakes, the king and milk snakes, the sand boas, and the common boa. But our belief here at Shadowland Serpentry is that you can start off with any snake you want as long as you do your proper research and are committed to taking care of them and housing them appropriately for 20 to 30 years. Heck, you can own a black mamba if you have the proper funding, do your research, and a medical staff on hand.
We don't recommend it though. Please do not do that.
It's probably the worst pet snake anybody can have, even experienced owners, but hey, start your journey. I'd even go as far as saying you can own a Siberian tiger. I'd first recommend watching Tiger King before getting started with that, but just my opinion.
Don't do that. Do not do that. And again, this is just our personal experience working with these species. If there are any other species that you think that would be a perfect beginner pet snake, please leave those in the comments for other people to see. Other than that,
we'll see you in the next one. Stay tuned.